This is the second talk of the April '89 7-day retreat in Springwater. During the opening talk, the evening of Saturday, I spoke about sitting motionlessly, still, in this particular room. And someone mentioned to me, you seem to have had some difficulty in talking about that. I noticed some awkwardness in the way you were expressing yourself, or some ambivalence. There seemed to be an implication in what you said that sitting motionless is something that we should do, that one ought to do here. And let me say, just because of such perception on the part of the listener is why I felt awkward in saying it. Or had some hesitation. Because I don't want to say anything about what anybody should do or what is the right thing to do. Because immediately if I say that, it becomes something rather than investigating for oneself what it is to sit motionlessly quiet. Toni says it's good for me, then maybe I should do it. And it falls exactly into the same slot, the same groove as everything else one has been told to do, and doing it in order to obey, conform, get something for oneself, rather than examining this whole groove. Now, it was mentioned that many people, or most people who come here, do come here for sitting quietly. Because our life is anything but that. It is almost continuous noise and motion. And to have a place where there can be sitting without noise and motion is something that is important to people who come here. Why it is important, whether one is getting attached or hung up on it, that is for each one of us to find out as we're sitting, as there may be a sound, somebody changing the posture, is annoyance coming up or irritation. He shouldn't be moving, he should follow the guidelines, and that becomes the dominant noise in the mind, because every thought is connected with sensations and emotions and feelings. And even though one may not move at all, these thoughts are rushing around wildly and causing the body to be in turbulence over someone else doing something what he or she is not supposed to do, or disturbing my quiet. So this is for each of us to observe, to come upon, to see clearly, to understand. So there are two aspects to this sitting quietly, motionlessly. And in speaking Saturday night about it, at at that moment, sitting motionlessly and looking at this motionlessness. Of course, there is some movement of the body in talking. But for myself, sitting motionlessly does not mean that I need other people to sit motionlessly or that the sound of someone moving is a disturbance. It is not. And yet it may be a disturbance to someone else because the mind immediately gets what's a good word for it? It is challenged or triggered to label what is happening. Unless there is direct, immediate attention and awareness, this process goes on. He is moving, and more words about it, and then the reactions to it, which we have just described a little while ago. But this in itself is something to look at, just as anger arising from a memory of what somebody did or said to one yesterday or 5 years ago. And yet, we can't say, can we? Well, it's his problem if I move. He has to deal with it. At least, I wouldn't say that. If people come here to sit quietly, I sit quietly to participate in that, not to follow a discipline or a rule which is good for me to follow or will result in some kind of an imagined state, but because we're all in this together. And out of that grows a mutual sensitivity and caring, which doesn't mean if a person has to get up or leave the room coughing, or when is sick, or when just can't stand the foot on the thigh any longer and moves it down. There's also something in the care in which we move which communicates itself, even though there may be an extra sound. One cannot enter a bedroom without opening and closing a door. One cannot take a new piece of clothing out of a bag without opening that bag and closing it. One may not have to close it. But the care and gentleness or even tenderness with which one does something communicates itself to someone else. People tell me this all the time. A person who stayed in my room just by the noticeable care and moving around and doing things, there was something happening in the quality of attention. We participate in our states of mind. We're not islands unto ourselves, even though we may think we are. So, if one is new here and is interested in what motionless sitting is, the best way of finding out is to do it. Not because it seems to be the order of the day or of the week, but one wants to find out about something human beings have been doing for thousands of years, here and there, sitting quietly. Animals do it too. People before the age of hecticness have done it too, sitting quietly in a circle, not talking or doing all kinds of everyday things. Now, another thing brought up by the person was when you, Toni, were talking about taking a walk, you seem to imply or even say that this is taking time off. I may have put it this way: if you want to take an afternoon off, by all means take a walk or take a round off. And the person says there's some implication or some message in this taking off. It sounds, or maybe you heard, as though this is taking time off from work or from meditation, leaving it in this room and now taking off. Did one hear it that way? It wasn't meant that way. There's no taking off from listening or thinking. One may be thinking a blue streak in this room and continue thinking a pink streak out on the walk. But the quality of openness, of listening and looking, does not need to end when one begins to move. That would be a completely false assumption, which would be conceptual. It's not based on watching. And whatever goes on here, can one be a first-hand, and know first-hand about it, not second-hand through what Toni says or other people who do retreats or have centers say, but use this place for finding out first-hand what goes on in a human being, while sitting motionlessly quiet, while moving in sitting, or while walking in these rooms, or taking a walk up the hill through the woods, or down the hill across the creek. Is the mind open, or is it locked in thought? And one doesn't hear the creek, one doesn't see the trees, or smell the earth. And then suddenly a coming to, and there it is, the sound of the water and the smell of the earth. The bird calls and the touch of cool air on the skin. I find in walking, suddenly standing still, just standing still, and not moving at all. Even the sounds, the rustling of the clothes, maybe pants scratching against each other, the footprints, the footsteps, drowns out some other sounds. Not that the sounds of the clothes moving or the footsteps is the wrong sound. It isn't, but it drowns out some other sounds, which, because it's closest to the ear, the clothes, or I've got a jacket where the zipper handle keeps flop, flopping. I have to do something about it. And standing still, do it yourself. Don't listen to me. You don't have to do it yourself either. I'm not saying you have to do anything. A very important point, though, is how we perceive or hear what is being said. And I think every one of us realizes that when the mind is set in opinion or in knowledge, in a reaction or in a prejudice or in an attachment, the hearing of what is being said gets distorted. We want to hear certain things to confirm what we believe in, what we're attached to. And we don't want to hear things which may upset what we're clinging to, or what is our identity, what we're identified with, for our feeling strong or comfortable or important or being somebody. That is why it is difficult to listen and not easy to find the right words, almost impossible. But the the beauty of the process is that one feels free to discuss it in a meeting or after a meeting. We have, outside of retreat, where meetings are relatively short, we have still, and may have for the unknown future, 1 hour long meetings. Anybody who wishes to come here sometime or to Rochester to talk for a longer period about what seems too short a stretch, these 15 minutes, then you are very welcome to come for such an hour-long meeting. And then bring up what's unclear, what you feel about is being said that is opinionated, or we'll discuss it all. You may wonder, well, will she be clear, or will she try to talk me into something? Well, if you have a feeling I'm doing that, then call my attention to it. Or going too fast. Sometimes people say that again, or slow down, you're saying this too fast, or you've jumped. So what one person mentioned to me was, I hear you say, in listening to yesterday's talk, putting it in my words, seeing is good and thinking is bad. To see is good, to think is bad. This is how the mind garners information. I'm partly using my own words, but this was what the person conveyed, trying to convey. We couldn't have a talk here if there wasn't thought and memory going on, because without memory there would be no English language coming up. Without memory of incidents that are referred to in the talk, there could be no examples given. So thinking is taking place. One can say we're looking and thinking together. But can there be some degree of clarity about the limitation of thought? The limitation and the whole process of thought, how it functions throughout the body-mind. And if there is no clarity or insight into that, we are captivated by thought and taking for real what is not. Like this whole idea of the me being a separate entity is a construct of thought, memory, feelings, desires, fears, all of it intertwined with thought and image, coming from memory. I'm making a statement here, but it is for each one to test, to put to the test the question, not to take it over, because it's no use to take it over. We have enough principles and ideas and doctrines already, unquestioned, just hung on to. We don't need one more. So, if the way I talk about thinking and seeing implies that one is good and the other is bad, then it is a poor talk. The clarity of looking and putting into words what is seen is obstructed if one thinks one is talking about something bad or one is talking about something good. So can judgment be seen for what it does and held in abeyance by the talker and the listener alike? So it doesn't narrow and impinge and distorts what is being said and heard. I'm not saying this would be good if this were so. I may use those words. But it's not good as opposed to bad. good meaning, clarifying obstructions or barriers, limitations, narrowness, caught upness in grooves, which we all are in our thinking, which is age-old, didn't just start with our life. The thinking grooves of good and bad, right and wrong, reward and punishment. So, rather than being concerned whether thinking is good or bad or seeing is good or bad, can one tell the difference? Is it possible to clearly see the difference between a thought with its connected feelings, emotions, sensations? And by thought, I don't just mean an individual thought, I mean our thinking in headlines and punchlines, our imagery, pictures we have of each other, of ourselves, and all the feelings of fear and desire connected with the pictures we have of ourselves and others. The emotions that come up when a memory arises of an angry moment, somebody saying something to us which was unfair, unjust, unjust, anger producing. To just see how repeating to oneself what the person said and one's own comment on it, how could he have the nerve to do something like that? And the feelings that instantly are there throughout the body. Heart, lung, gallbladder, blood circulation, tension in the muscles, all participates. When the sentence of what he said and our own comment, how could he do that to me? I'll never forget that. And of course then further comments come up as the anger is felt. I have a right to be angry. I'm justified in this anger. Which has, again, new feelings and sensations associated with it. And then comes another headline which says, don't be angry. You should be a peaceful person. You have vowed not to be angry, or whatever one may have done to try to control this. And new feelings, tensions, and emotions arising. And all of that not in harmony. It's contradictory. These statements and feelings are contradictory to each other. What we have described right now is thought, image, coming from memory, arousing sensations and emotions, which arouse further thoughts and images, which arouse further emotions, and the conflict among these thoughts and emotions. That's what goes on in human beings, you and me. And the question that is asked is, can there be a glimpse of attention, a glimpse of insight of this ongoing process? Not further thinking about it. I'm angry and I have a right, or let me go back. Was I angry before? How did this anger originate? Trying to analyze it, bring it back to youthful experiences of helplessness in the presence of overpowering parents or angry parents. That's more thinking, more remembering. We're asking whether there can be a totally different response. which does not originate in a headline. I should be attentive. When that thought comes up too, I should be attentive in all this turmoil. But how can I be attentive? What is she talking about? And maybe anger. She talks about it so easily, but I can't do it. And anger. We started out with a question whether there can be discernment of the difference between thinking and attending, or seeing, or awareness. Let me say here that these words are used at different times, but all of these words, like seeing or listening clearly, attending or awareness, are of the same essence, namely a comprehension, here I have another word, without thought, which doesn't mean thought is bad or wrong, but an insight which does not come out of thought and is not the movement of thought in the brain. It may shed light on thought, see a thought that just reverberated in the mind and caused an emotion which is still very palpable. Emotions don't just disappear. But the seeing or the attending or the listening is not the movement of thought, even though thought may be revealed as taking place or having taken place. I wonder whether we can go through this together, whether we can catch this is thought and this is not thought. Here, in sitting right now, this hand is on this thigh. Now, the word hand is not this here. And the word thigh is not this. And the expression hand clapping the thigh is not what is actually happening. Is that clear? Hand rubbing cloth, that's a sentence, it's an expression. But the expression hand rubbing cloth or pants is not this. The description, the hand is rubbing the pants, the description is not this here. Do you see that? Do you hear that? Is that clear? The word bird, I don't know what it is. Somebody here knows what it is, but I don't. The word bird is not, or bird calling is not wah, wah, wah. That's clear, isn't it? But the mind instantly, and that's why people get disturbed in sitting quietly. When somebody moves, the mind instantly names it and reacts to it. Labels it, reacts to it, and with a reaction come associated feelings. This is a bird. I love the birds around here. Sometimes people say, what would she do if she didn't have birds? And sometimes it's difficult. We listen and there's nothing. In the wintertime, maybe not even the wind stirring in the trees. It's no problem though, because can one listen to nothing? Not the concept of nothing, the Buddhist emptiness or so, but not a thing, just the openness of listening. with no sound. Listening doesn't need an object. Seeing doesn't need something to be seen. It's just the openness of the mind. Come what may, sound, sight, feeling, emotion, pain, the mind is open. It doesn't clutch an idea of itself or what that is seen or heard. Do I sound as though I was talking about good and bad? I'm not. I'm just very passionately into this. So, the word paper rustling, is this. And with the word paper rustling comes some kind of a reaction, doesn't it? Or can the reaction be absent? Because one is listening intensely. Listening without the word, is that possible? The word comes up, but it's seen. The word is not this. The reaction, I don't like this sound, or I like it, is not this. This is just this. Not say it's bad that thought comes up, but to see that thought comes up. And to see that the thought is not this. And that the reaction begins to become important because of all the feelings and associations in the mind. And then this sort of fades into the background. Pretty soon one doesn't hear birds calling or water running or footsteps on the path. But it's all this scenario called up by thought and memory of what he did or she didn't do. And then walking in a space capsule, insulated from what else is going on around one, and insulated from what is going on within oneself, because as long as we're captivated by the content of our thoughts, we don't see the process of thinking as such. The process of thinking meaning one thought appearing and the immediate linkage with feeling. Associated thoughts, associated memories, associated feelings, and so on and so on. We get caught up in it. That's why we don't see the connection. And that's why we think there's a real me here that has feelings. Actually, the depth of the feelings, the gut feelings that we have, validate our belief that we're real. And we don't see how they originate from memory of something that happened. Because we don't look. We move with the content of our thoughts and feelings, and then elaborate upon our feelings with more thought. About ourselves, never questioning what this ourself really is. By which we're not questioning that there's a body sitting here, which is alive, produces certain sounds, has a certain tone, muscle tone. The breath is there, the heart is beating. And sitting very quietly, there is perception of the pulsating of the blood, the tingling of energies. It's all there. It doesn't have to be. I'm labeling it now because we're communicating. But in sitting, there needs to be no label at all. It's just going on. And when there is no label, then there's no feeling this is me, because that sentence and way of thinking is quiet. The moment I think, oh my God, what's happening to me? Will I disappear? Then there's the me with its fears of disappearing. Did I say that too fast. Because this question is brought up all the time as there is a point in sitting where there is no thought about me. And it's not just in sitting, it can be in walking. No thought about myself. And therefore no reaction to the thought about myself. Therefore no feeling to the reaction to the thought about myself. Just walking, sitting, and the breathing, the heartbeat, tingling throughout the body. Or no tingling. Don't think I must tingle because she says she's tingling. You see what thought does. It's not to get caught by it, but to see it. So, there is no thought of myself. It's just the listening inwardly, outwardly, which is no two separate listenings. It's the same openness, whether it's ka, 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 or same listening. No thought, it's my breathing, or no thought, I am hearing that bird. It's just listening. And then, people tell this, report this all the time, the thought coming up, I'm lost. I must find myself. I must backtrack to where I am. One person almost put it that way. It's a good observation. Thought being quiet, we don't know where we are because we're not thinking about ourselves sitting on a chair. Even though there's not any kind of fantasy going on that I'm on a cloud. There's very palpable something underneath the butt and underneath the knees and the toes. Actually kind of hard there. So, the thought, where was I? And re-establishing in thought where I am. And very often, fear coming up. Hey, what is this kind of thing getting me into? Will I disappear? Will I lose myself? Will I be gone? Will life be worth living without the me? And then immediately maybe a memory of pleasures that one has had and that one still hopes to have in the future. And already grieving over maybe losing those if one goes too far with this. Doesn't this go on? The re-establishment of the thought of me with its attachments and feelings. The feelings validating that there is a me because I feel. I feel, therefore I am. And I think, therefore I am. I don't know whether you've had the experience of waking up from a very deep sleep. Very deep sleep meaning no dream. At that particular moment of waking up, there's no dream in the mind, there's just waking up and not knowing where one is, not knowing what time it is, or what one is about. Happens particularly during retreat if one takes a nap at an unusual time, or if one travels, one sleeps here, then one sleeps there, and one wakes up and one doesn't know where one is. And quickly, but noticeably with a time lag, the time lag between waking up and thought furnishing the data of what time it is, it's afternoon, or it's night, you can go on sleeping, you don't have to get up. And I'm here in Springwater, I am in Rajasthan, north and unaware. Slowly, not slowly in terms of taking a lot of time, but not instantly, but one can notice the lag between waking up and thought furnishing information to inform oneself, meaning making a form again. I am. An abstract form. This form is there, was asleep and it's waking, and it was functioning beautifully without the thought of me during sleep. To say something about thought, whether it's bad or... Thought has very important functions in our life, and memory. Memory and thought I always take as one, because memory gives rise to thoughts, or thoughts issue from memory. I wonder whether if we had no memory there would be any thoughts. I doubt it. And since memory is included in this whole thing of thought, we also include non-verbal memories, because there was a time in our life, or are times in our life when we're not thinking, but a memory impresses itself very deeply in the brain. And that memory can be evoked by a sound, a word, a sight, and act in the same way as a thought. Because both memory and memory is linked with a whole organismic functioning. Without having recorded in the mind where spring water is, we wouldn't find our way here. Without knowing about where the kitchen is, we wouldn't find it to eat. Wouldn't remember where the utensils are. People who have contact with persons who have memory degeneration, Alzheimer's or whatever, know what a difficult life it is, and one can't carry on a conversation with a person because the person forgets what the word he just said. There's no continuity to thinking, and therefore no communicating, at least on a verbal level. I've only seen it on television. I have never been directly in touch with a person who has Alzheimer's disease. And obviously without memory and the skill and knowledge that comes from memory, we could never have built this building. Couldn't have built it without thinking ahead. Sometimes we didn't think ahead. At times we weren't too concerned about this, and that was the beauty of this building project. We were sort of, as one person said it, bumbling along. And yet there were plans, and one had to decide how much lumber to order and think about that. We make mistakes. We made mistakes, but there's no question. It's not being questioned at all that there is a function for thought. But even during the building project, it became very clear the freer thought was from identification with this is my thought or my opinion, this is my plan or my way of working. The more we got involved with that, the more difficult it was to proceed. And the less we were involved with thought becoming hooked up with self-image and self-identity, the less that was the case, the freer it could proceed and the freer the action. It gets sticky immediately when there is, this is my way or my plan. Not that one doesn't have an idea or plan, but one doesn't have to stick to it. Doesn't have to defend it as though one was defending this body from attack, from lethal attack or damaging attack. And this is how we defend our opinions, as though we were defending this vulnerable body. There's something for all of us to observe, because it is amazing what one can discover about a discussion. One may have put out something into the discussion, but and maybe not thought it out very well or looked at it, but when I put it out, and all of a sudden I begin to defend that just because I said it. As though it was a piece of me out there, still attached. And if it gets pinched, it causes pain throughout my body. If once this is discovered and seen, not just thought about, here we're thinking about it, but maybe we can also see it. Because if it's seen, it doesn't have to continue. Then there's the freedom to say something and let go of it. Let it be there in the momentum of the discussion. If something else is said that makes more sense, seems clearer or better, then there's nothing to defend. And then it's easy to discuss things. It becomes almost impossible to do this if everybody defends their position, their opinion, their piece of wisdom. So, does that shed some light on a thought that comes up? Let's do it this way, or could we do it that way? And when somebody says, no, it's no good, then immediately, I've been attacked. That's also thought, isn't it? He attacked me. He didn't take me seriously, or I'm not worthy in this group. We can go off immediately to headline about ourselves, and the feelings follow very obediently to these headlines. They don't like me. They never listen to me. And at such a moment of feeling dejected with all of these lines floating around in the mind, can there, out of nowhere, be a moment of quiet attending to the turmoil, thoughts, feelings, emotions, here, there, everywhere. A quiet listening, which is not out to prove, it's not out to defend, it's not out to get something, it's not out, it's just there. And all of a sudden there may be the jay, the wind in the trees, the heart beating. Not as mine or his or theirs, but it's there. Without any division. Because for a moment there is what? I hate to use a word for it. Nothing. We will end here for today.